Did you know your great-great-great-great-grandparents had an entire job description just for being old? What if getting wrinkles meant signing up for even more responsibility, not less? How did older people from the fall of Rome to the Renaissance, roughly 500 CE to 1500 CE, really live? Number 10. Seeking spiritual salvation. Life in the medieval period, for anyone, was deeply intertwined with faith. For elders, this connection took on an even more profound and urgent meaning. The expectation was that as a person neared the end of their earthly journey, their focus should shift almost entirely towards securing a favorable afterlife. This was not just a personal spiritual quest. It was a public and social obligation. An elder was expected to demonstrate deep piety, making visible efforts to cleanse their soul and prepare for judgment. This often meant an increase in devotion, attendance at religious services, and participation in holy rituals. One might see an elder who had spent a lifetime engaged in worldly affairs, suddenly dedicating much of their remaining time to prayer and contemplation. They might spend long hours in the local church, kneeling before the altar, even if their knees ached from age. The chanting of psalms, the scent of incense, the solemnity of Mass became central to their daily routine. This outward display of piety served as an example to the younger generations. Children and grandchildren would observe their elders' commitment to spiritual matters, reinforcing the importance of faith within the family and community. It was a silent lesson teaching them about mortality and the eternal consequences of their actions. The older person's devotion was seen as a way of preparing themselves for a good death, a concept highly valued in medieval society. A good death was one where the dying person was conscious, able to confess their sins, receive the last rites, and express repentance. An elder who had spent their final years in pious reflection was believed to be more likely to achieve such a death, surrounded by loved ones and blessed by the Church. Beyond personal devotion, elders were also expected to make spiritual provisions for their souls through acts of charity and endowments. This often took the form of giving money or land to the church, monasteries, or convents. These donations were not just simple gifts. They were often contractual arrangements. In exchange for the donation, the religious institution would commit to praying for the donor's soul, often in perpetuity. A wealthy lord or lady, as they aged, might grant vast estates to an abbey, ensuring that monks would sing masses for their soul long after their death. Even less affluent individuals would strive to leave what little they could, perhaps a few coins, a piece of furniture, or a small plot of land. These bequests were recorded in wills and testament documents, which often began with lengthy religious preambles, outlining the elder's desire for salvation. These acts of giving were meticulously planned. An elder might negotiate with church officials, ensuring that the prayers were specific, perhaps, for the remission of sins or for the souls of their ancestors. This was a very practical way to secure a place in heaven, using earthly wealth to purchase spiritual insurance. The documents from the time show elaborate arrangements for chantry chapels, where priests would be hired specifically to pray for the founder's soul. The construction of these chapels, often within existing churches, served as a lasting physical monument to the elders' piety and wealth, reminding everyone of their spiritual foresight. The expectation of seeking spiritual salvation also extended to pilgrimage. For many elders, undertaking a pilgrimage to a holy site was the culmination of a lifetime of faith. It was a grueling journey, often involving great physical hardship and expense, but it was believed to bring immense spiritual merit. Walking the Camino de Santiago to Compostela, visiting Rome, or even traveling to the Holy Land were seen as ultimate acts of devotion. An elder who undertook such a journey, especially if they were frail, demonstrated an incredible dedication to their faith. Stories from the period recount elderly pilgrims braving harsh weather, dangerous roads, and illness, all driven by the desire for spiritual cleansing and divine blessing. Their return, if they survived, would be met with reverence and admiration from their community. They would have tales of miraculous encounters and sacred relics, reinforcing the power of faith for everyone. Furthermore, some elders chose to enter religious orders in their final years. For those who had lived lives of secular pursuits, a monastic life offered a profound opportunity for repentance and spiritual focus. Widows, in particular, might enter convents, dedicating their remaining years to prayer and service. They would shed their worldly clothes for simple habits, embracing a life of asceticism and communal worship. This choice was often seen as a noble and pious end to a well-lived life, a way to fully dedicate oneself to God without the distractions of the secular world. Accounts exist of elderly individuals, even those who had held positions of power and influence, renouncing their worldly possessions to become monks or nuns, seeking humility and grace. The expectation to seek salvation was not just about personal piety, it was about the communal well-being. A pious elder was believed to contribute to the spiritual health of the entire community. Their prayers, their good works, and their example were thought to bring blessings upon their family, their village, and even their Lord. A community that had many devout elders was considered to be blessed by God, protected from misfortunes, and guided towards righteousness. When an elder passed away, their death was marked by elaborate funeral rites, masses, and prayers, all aimed at assisting their soul on its journey to the afterlife. The community rallied around the family, offering condolences and participating in the rituals, reinforcing the collective belief in the importance of spiritual preparation. This entire process, from increased devotion to death rituals, solidified the elders' role as a spiritual beacon, guiding those around them by their ultimate pursuit of eternal grace. Number 9. Nurturing the young. The role of an elder in medieval society extended far beyond merely existing. It was deeply intertwined with the development and upbringing of the next generation. This nurturing aspect was a crucial social expectation, not just a nice gesture. Elders were seen as vital educators and caregivers, bridging the gap between past traditions and future needs. They were the living libraries of a time before widespread literacy, holding the stories, skills, and values essential for survival and social cohesion. In a world where formal schooling was rare, especially for the common folk, learning happened within the household and the community. Grandparents, aunts, and uncles played a significant part in this informal education. They taught practical skills necessary for daily life. A grandmother might teach a young girl how to spin wool, weave cloth, bake bread, or prepare medicinal herbs. These were not just hobbies, they were critical for the economic survival of the family. A grandfather might instruct a boy on how to mend tools, care for animals, plow a field, or identify edible plants in the forest. These lessons were often given patiently, through repetition and hands-on guidance, ensuring that the knowledge was deeply ingrained. Records from peasant communities, though sparse, often hint at the continuous transmission of agricultural techniques passed down from one generation to the next, often through the lived experience shared between elders and the young. Beyond practical skills, elders were also the primary custodians of oral tradition and cultural memory. They told stories, sang songs, and recited poems that conveyed history, morality, and religious teachings. These narratives were more than entertainment. They were the means by which the young understood their place in the world, their family's lineage, and the customs of their community. Listening to tales of ancestors, local heroes, or miraculous saints helped children develop a sense of identity and belonging. An elder might spend evenings by the hearth, recounting legends of the founding of their village, or explaining the significance of a particular feast day. These storytelling sessions fostered a strong sense of community and reinforced shared values, tying the present generation to their roots. Chronicles often describe elderly women as the bearers of local lore and remedies, consulted by younger village members for advice on everything from illness to marital disputes, showing their continuous importance as knowledge keepers. Elders also played a key role in teaching manners and social etiquette. They instilled the importance of respect for authority proper, behavior in social gatherings, and the unwritten rules of interaction within the community. Children learned from their elders how to address a lord, how to behave during church services, and how to conduct themselves during village festivities. This instruction was often subtle, conveyed through example and gentle correction. But it was relentless. A stern look from an elder could be more effective than any punishment, ensuring children learned to conform to social norms. Court records, though not directly documenting this, imply a social structure where deviation from accepted norms was quickly corrected by communal pressure, often exerted by the more senior members. For noble families, elders often took on a specific role in educating heirs. A widowed duchess might be responsible for tutoring her young grandson in courtly manners, history, and the intricacies of managing an estate. She would teach him about the lineage of his family, the importance of alliances, and the responsibilities that came with power. These lessons were critical for preparing future leaders. Old retainers, who had served the family for many years, might also act as mentored, sharing their accumulated wisdom about warfare, diplomacy, and the management of a household. Historical accounts of noble children being fostered in other noble households often mention the presence of older trusted family members or servants who oversaw their upbringing, ensuring they were properly educated and disciplined according to their station. Furthermore, elders often provided direct care for young children, especially when parents were busy with labor. Grandparents might mind infants, supervise toddlers, or accompany older children on errands. This was especially true in peasant households, where both parents often worked in the fields. The elderly became the primary caregivers, offering comfort, supervision, and a stable presence. The presence of multiple generations living under one roof, common in medieval households, facilitated this shared childcare responsibility. An old woman past her prime for strenuous field work could still contribute immensely by tending to the young children, ensuring their safety and basic needs were met while the middle generation focused on production. This intergenerational cooperation was a cornerstone of family survival. The nurturing role also involved passing on spiritual and moral guidance. Elders taught children about their faith, explaining religious stories, prayers, and the importance of living a virtuous life. They reinforced moral lessons through parables and personal anecdotes, shaping the ethical compass of the young. This moral instruction was essential for building a cohesive and righteous community. They taught about the dangers of sin, the rewards of piety, and the eternal consequences of actions, thereby preparing the young not just for earthly life, but for the afterlife. In times of hardship, such as famine or plague, the resilience and wisdom of elders became even more critical. They might know forgotten methods of finding food, or ancient remedies for illness passed down through generations. Their calm presence and accumulated experience could provide stability and hope in desperate times. Their guidance was a lifeline, demonstrating the true value of their presence. The loss of elders during pandemics like the Black Death was devastating not just in terms of numbers, but also in the irreplaceable loss of institutional knowledge and social memory. The importance of elders in nurturing the young was thus not just a social expectation. It was a fundamental pillar of medieval society's continuity and survival. Number 8. Representing experience and authority. The mere presence of an elder in medieval society carried inherent weight and respect. Age was almost synonymous with experience, and experience was a highly valued commodity in a world where knowledge was largely accumulated through a lifetime of observation and practice. This created a social expectation for elders to embody and represent authority, not necessarily through formal power, but through their very being. Their gray hairs and weathered faces were seen as visible markers of wisdom, hard-won through years of navigating life's challenges. This authority was not always about giving direct commands. Often, it was about their word carrying significant influence in disputes and decisions. When a disagreement arose in a village, people would often turn to the oldest members of the community for mediation. Their long memory of past events, local customs, and family histories made them ideal arbiters. They could recall previous resolutions to similar problems, or recount the traditional way things were done, thus providing a foundation for fair judgment. A decision blessed by the elders was considered legitimate and binding, even without formal legal backing. Chronicles and local court records sometimes refer to the testimony of the oldest men of the village as crucial evidence, showing the weight given to their memory and experience. In family matters, the head of the household, often the eldest male, held considerable authority over his children, grandchildren, and sometimes even great-grandchildren. This authority extended to decisions about land, inheritance, and marriage arrangements. An elder father or grandfather would have the final say on who a daughter married, how the family land was divided, or which son would inherit the main farm. Their decisions were rarely questioned openly, as disobedience could lead to disinheritance or social ostracization. This power was rooted in the understanding that the elder had built and maintained the family's prosperity, and therefore had the right to determine its future. Even if they had passed on the day-to-day management, their overarching guidance remained. Beyond the family, elders often held informal leadership roles in the community. They might be key members of village councils, or the most respected voices in communal gatherings. Their opinions were sought on matters of common concern, such as the timing of the harvest, the allocation of common lands, or the defense of the village against threats. Their advice was considered sound because it was informed by years of observation and adaptation to local conditions. An elder who had seen several bad harvests or dealt with various local lords had invaluable insight that younger, less experienced individuals simply lacked. The wisdom of age was often seen as divine blessing, a gift from God. This respect for elders was codified in some social norms and laws, though often informally. Younger individuals were expected to defer to elders, to speak respectfully in their presence, and to stand aside to let them pass. Insulting or harming an elder was considered a serious offense, not just against the individual, but against the social fabric itself. This societal reverence was a powerful deterrent against disrespect. Even within a household, younger members were expected to obey their elders without question, ensuring a clear hierarchy and order. The authority of elders was also tied to their perceived connection to the past. They were living links to tradition, to the way things had always been done. In a society that valued continuity and stability, this connection was immensely powerful. They were the keepers of ancestral knowledge, ritual practices, and historical memory, which gave them a unique moral authority. When an elder spoke of a custom or a tradition, it was imbued with the weight of generations. This was particularly evident in religious ceremonies and local festivals, where elders often took on prominent roles, leading rituals or explaining their significance to the younger participants. For the nobility and clergy, this expectation manifested differently. An aged abbot or bishop, having spent decades in spiritual service, commanded immense respect and spiritual authority within the church hierarchy. Their accumulated theological knowledge and administrative experience made them invaluable advisors to younger clergy or even to secular rulers. Similarly, An elderly noble, perhaps a widowed countess or a retired knight, might still wield considerable influence through their network of connections, their strategic knowledge, and their established reputation. They might not lead troops into battle, but their counsel on diplomacy or inheritance could be critical for the future of their lineage. Historical chronicles frequently mention elderly counselors, advisors, and regents whose experience was considered indispensable for good governance. The authority of elders was not simply about power, it was about trust. They were seen as trustworthy because they had less to gain from short-term manipulations and more to lose from a disrupted social order. Their perspective was often viewed as broader, less focused on immediate gratification and more on long-term stability for the community and family. They represented the collective memory and conscience of the group, ensuring that decisions were made with an eye toward tradition and the well-being of future generations. Thus, representing experience and authority was a fundamental and widely accepted social expectation for medial elders, a cornerstone of their value in a world that revered the wisdom of the past. Number 7. Preserving traditions and customs. In a world before mass media and widespread literacy, the continuity of culture, community, and social order relied heavily on the living memory of its oldest members. Medieval elders were explicitly expected to act as the primary custodians of traditions and customs, ensuring that the ways of life, the practices of their community, and the moral codes were passed down accurately and diligently from one generation to the next. This was not a passive role, it was an active and continuous process of teaching, reinforcing, and embodying the established norms. Every aspect of medieval life, from the planting of crops to the celebration of holy days, was governed by long-standing traditions. Elders were the experts in these rituals and practices. They knew the precise timing for sowing different seeds, the traditional methods for harvesting, and the proper ways to preserve food. This knowledge was essential for the survival and prosperity of the community. A young farmer might learn the basics from his parents, but it was the experienced elder who could explain the nuances of crop rotation over decades, or the particular signs in nature that indicated a harsh winter was coming. Wisdom accumulated over a lifetime, this practical knowledge was invaluable, especially in times of environmental uncertainty. Beyond agricultural practices, elders were also the guardians of social customs. They knew the unwritten rules of community interaction, the appropriate behavior for various social situations, and the proper etiquette for events like weddings, funerals, and local feasts. They could correct younger members who strayed from these norms, ensuring that social harmony was maintained. For instance, an elder might gently remind a young bride about the traditions associated with her wedding feast, or ensure that mourning rituals were observed correctly after a death. Their presence at such events was a guarantee that things were being done the right way, upholding communal identity. Village records often show elders mediating disputes by referring to ancient custom or the way of our forefathers, highlighting their role as living legal precedents. Religious traditions were particularly important. Elders were expected to know the stories of the saints, the local legends associated with their church, and the specific prayers and practices for different feast days. They often led family prayers, taught children about their faith, and ensured that religious observances were followed correctly. They would tell tales of miracles, explain the meaning of symbols in the church, and guide younger members through the complexities of religious dogma, all drawing from their own deep-rooted faith and learned experience. This continuity of religious practice was vital for the spiritual well-being of the community and the individual. Monastic chroniclers occasionally mention older revered members who served as living encyclopedias of liturgical practice and monastic rule, ensuring that centuries-old traditions were meticulously followed. The preservation of lineage and family history was another crucial task. Elders were the memory keepers of their family, knowing generations of ancestors, their achievements, and their land holdings. This knowledge was critical for establishing claims to inheritance, forging advantageous marriages, and understanding family alliances. An elder could recount the heroic deeds of a great-grandfather or explain the complex relationships between different noble houses, knowledge essential for maintaining social standing and power. For noble families, the elder generation often meticulously maintained genealogies, either through written records or oral traditions, ensuring that the family's prestige and historical claims were secure. Elders also played a vital role in maintaining the oral histories and folklore of their region. They knew the local myths, the songs, the riddles, and the proverbs that defined their cultural identity. These stories were often told around the hearth, serving as both entertainment and moral instruction. They passed on cautionary tales, celebrated heroic deeds, and explained the origins of local landmarks or phenomena. This rich tapestry of shared narratives created a strong sense of community and belonging, tying individuals to their particular place in the world. The absence of widespread printed books made these oral traditions immensely powerful, and elders were the primary conduits. When disputes arose, elders often served as adjudicators, their decisions informed by a deep knowledge of traditional law and local precedent. They could recall similar cases from the past, or cite established customs that applied to the situation. Their judgment was respected because it was seen as rooted in the collective wisdom of the community, not just personal opinion. This role was particularly important in decentralized medieval societies where formal legal systems were often distant or inaccessible to the common person. The authority of the elders in resolving local conflicts often stemmed from their mastery of inherited practices and community norms. The expectation to preserve traditions and customs was not just about recalling the past. It was about actively making it relevant for the present and future. Elders demonstrated the importance of these traditions through their own lives, participating in ceremonies, teaching the young, and upholding the moral values of their society. Their very existence was a testament to the enduring power of these customs. When an elder passed away, it was often felt that an irreplaceable library of knowledge had been lost, highlighting the critical nature of their role. This understanding reinforced the social pressure on those who reached old age to become steadfast guardians of their heritage, ensuring the continuity and identity of their medieval world. Number 6. Advising rulers or lords. For elders who occupied positions of influence, particularly within noble or clerical circles, a distinct and significant social expectation was to provide counsel and advice to rulers, lords, and other figures of power. This was not merely an option, but often a duty, rooted in the belief that accumulated experience and wisdom were indispensable for good governance and effective leadership. Young or inexperienced rulers were especially expected to seek out and heed the advice of their elders, understanding that their own success could depend on it. A prominent example of this expectation is seen in royal courts. Kings, even powerful ones, frequently surrounded themselves with councils of older trusted advisors. These could be aged noblemen who had served the crown for decades, respected bishops with vast theological and administrative knowledge, or seasoned military commanders. These elders would offer counsel on matters of state, including foreign policy, taxation, justice, and military strategy. Their advice was highly valued because they had witnessed many political upheavals, diplomatic maneuvers, and economic cycles. They knew the intricacies of lineage, the historical grievances between families, and the potential pitfalls of various alliances. Chronicles often describe elderly statesmen like Suger, abbot of Saint-Denis, advising French kings, their deep understanding of the kingdom's history and challenges proving invaluable. For a local lord, the expectation might involve consulting with the most respected and oldest tenants or freemen in his domain. While these villagers might not hold formal titles, their intimate knowledge of the land, the local economy, and the disposition of the populace was crucial for the lord's effective rule. An old peasant might advise on the best time to sow a particular crop, or warn about an impending famine based on years of observing weather patterns. They could also inform the lord about local grievances or brewing unrest, allowing him to address issues before they escalated. These informal advisory roles were essential for maintaining stability and ensuring the smooth functioning of the lord's estate. The lord, in turn, was expected to listen to these voices, demonstrating his concern for his people and his reliance on practical wisdom. Within the church, elderly bishops and abbots often held significant sway in matters of doctrine, administration, and even politics. Their long years of study, prayer, and management of large ecclesiastical institutions made them formidable figures. They would advise younger prelates on theological questions, guide monastic communities, and often mediate disputes between secular rulers. Their moral authority, combined with their practical experience, gave their advice immense weight. For example, the advice of elderly cardinals in Rome during papal elections or on matters of church policy was highly respected, shaping the direction of Christendom. The long tenures of some ecclesiastical leaders meant they had observed numerous political changes and had built extensive networks, making their counsel particularly eager. The advice offered by elders was not just about practical matters. It also often encompassed moral and ethical considerations. They were seen as having a deeper understanding of justice, piety, and the consequences of actions, both earthly and spiritual. An elder advisor might remind a young king of his duties to God and his people, warning against tyranny or unjust taxation. They served as a moral compass, drawing upon religious teachings and a lifetime of observing human nature. This moral guidance was particularly important for rulers who held immense power and faced constant temptation. Treatises on kingship from the medieval period often emphasized the importance of a ruler surrounding himself with wise, aged counselors. The very act of seeking advice from elders was a demonstration of humility and wisdom on the part of the ruler. It showed that they recognized their own limitations and valued the accumulated knowledge of others. A ruler who ignored the counsel of his elders risked being seen as arrogant, inexperienced, and prone to poor judgment. Conversely, a ruler who regularly consulted his elders was often lauded as prudent and wise, enhancing his legitimacy and authority in the eyes of his subjects. Historical texts frequently praise rulers who listened to the wise counsel of their elders as a sign of their good character and effective governance. This expectation meant that elders, especially those from influential families or with significant past experience, remained active participants in political and social life, even in their declining years. Their minds, rather than their physical strength, became their most potent tools. They might retire from active battlefield command, but their strategic insights, derived from decades of warfare, were still critical. They might no longer manage daily estate affairs, but their knowledge of land values and tenant histories was invaluable for estate planning. The longevity of their memory and their accumulated insights ensured that they continued to play a pivotal role in the power structures of medieval society, making the advising of rulers or lords a central and honored expectation of the aged. 4. Tithe. Economic productivity and management. Even as physical strength waned, medieval elders were expected to maintain a significant degree of economic productivity and management within their households and communities. Old age did not automatically grant retirement from labor. Rather, it often transformed the nature of their contribution, shifting from heavy manual work to lighter tasks, oversight, and the management of resources and knowledge. This was a necessity in an economy where every pair of hands counted and where specialized skills were often passed down through generations. In peasant households, Elders often transitioned from arduous field labor to tasks better suited to their diminished physical capacity. An older woman might take on more responsibility for spinning, weaving, making clothes, or caring for children, allowing younger, stronger women to focus on demanding agricultural work. She might tend to the kitchen garden, churn butter, or prepare meals. An older man, no longer able to plow all day, might focus on mending tools, repairing buildings, managing livestock in the barn, or crafting baskets. These tasks were vital for the household's self-sufficiency and economic output. Records from manorial estates, such as rent rolls or labor service documents, sometimes show slight adjustments in the types of labor expected from older tenants, indicating a recognition of their changing capacities. Elders also played a critical role in the management and oversight of the household economy. As the most experienced members, they often held the key to the family's accumulated wealth, whether that was land, livestock, or stored provisions. They would make decisions about sowing, harvesting, and selling surplus goods. They understood market conditions, knew who to trade with, and how to bargain effectively. Their long-term perspective was crucial for planning, ensuring that enough food was stored for winter or that investments were made for future harvests. The head of the household, often the eldest male, would retain ultimate authority over the family's economic decisions, even if his sons performed the physical labor. This managerial role was highly valued, especially in a world where mismanaging resources could mean starvation. For artisans and craftspeople, the elder's role was often indispensable. A master craftsman, even in old age, retained the most specialized knowledge and skill. They might no longer be able to spend hours hunched over a workbench, but they would oversee apprentices, guide journeymen, and perform the most delicate or critical parts of a craft. Their judgment on quality, their understanding of materials, and their accumulated trade secrets were irreplaceable. They were the living repository of their craft's accumulated wisdom. Guild records from various towns often show older masters retaining their positions of authority, sometimes even leading the guild, indicating that their experience was more valuable than raw strength. For example, an elderly master mason might still design complex architectural elements even if younger men laid the stones. In noble households, the economic contributions of elders shifted towards high-level administration and estate management. A widowed countess might oversee the entire running of a large household, managing servants' accounts and supplies for hundreds of people. She would know the intricacies of feasting, hospitality, and the maintenance of a grand estate. An older knight, no longer capable of leading troops, might be put in charge of the castle's defenses or given a role in managing a particular revenue-generating property. Their long experience with warfare, diplomacy, and land management made their contributions vital to the economic and political well-being of their lineage. Historical documents about great aristocratic families often highlight the ongoing administrative roles of older family members, ensuring the continuity of wealth and power. The passing down of economic knowledge and skills was also a critical expectation. Elders were responsible for teaching the younger generation the specific trades, farming techniques, and financial practices necessary for their livelihood. This was an active process of apprenticeship and mentorship within the family or workshop. Without this transmission of knowledge, the economic stability of future generations would be jeopardized. An elder not only performed economically useful tasks, but also ensured the future economic viability of the household by training their successors. This educational role was an economic contribution in itself. Furthermore, elders often retained control over property and inheritance until their death, or until they chose to formally retire. This control meant that younger generations were dependent on them for access to land, tools, and other resources necessary for their own economic pursuits. This gave elders significant leverage and ensured their continued relevance. While this could sometimes cause tension, it also reinforced the elder's position as the ultimate economic authority within the family. The decision to pass on land or wealth was a significant act, often requiring careful consideration and negotiation within the family, all orchestrated by the elder. Thus, the expectation for medieval elders to contribute economically was multifaceted. It encompassed direct labor, adapted to their capabilities, the management of household and estate resources, the transmission of vital skills, and the oversight of inheritance. Their sustained economic participation, whether through physical work or intellectual management, was integral to the prosperity and continuity of their families and communities, solidifying their ongoing and indispensable value. Number 4. Care of the family lineage. One of the most profound and enduring social expectations placed upon medieval elders, particularly those in positions of authority within their families, was the careful and deliberate care of the family lineage. This went far beyond simply having children. It involved ensuring the continuity, prosperity, and social standing of the family name across generations. Elders were the living embodiment of the family's past and the architects of its future, bearing immense responsibility for its survival and success. A primary aspect of caring for the lineage was arranging advantageous marriages for their children and grandchildren. Marriage was rarely a matter of personal choice in the modern sense. It was a strategic alliance, an economic transaction, and a social contract. Elders, with their accumulated wisdom and network of connections, were best placed to identify suitable partners who would bring land, wealth, political influence, or a strong reputation to the family. They would engage in lengthy negotiations, poring over dowry agreements, studying genealogies, and assessing the social standing of prospective in-laws. For a noble family, a carefully chosen marriage could elevate their status, secure a new territory, or forge a powerful military alliance. For a peasant family, a good marriage might mean acquiring more land, gaining access to a valuable skill, or ensuring enough labor for the farm. The elder's judgment in these matters was considered paramount, as a bad marriage could ruin a family's prospects for generations. Another critical responsibility was the management of inheritance. Elders had to decide how their property, whether land, goods, or titles, would be passed down. This was often complex, involving customs like primogeniture, where the eldest son inherited everything, or partible inheritance where property was divided. Regardless of the system, the elder had to navigate family dynamics, potential disputes among heirs, and the practicalities of dividing resources fairly or effectively. Their decisions had long-lasting consequences for the economic stability and social harmony of the family. Wills and testaments, drafted towards the end of an elder's life, meticulously detail these arrangements, showing the careful thought given to ensuring the lineage continued prosperity. These documents often reflect the elder's attempt to provide for all their offspring while keeping the core family wealth intact. Elders also bore the responsibility of upholding the family's honor and reputation. Their own actions and decisions were expected to reflect well on the entire lineage. They would maintain alliances, settle old debts, and ensure that any past grievances were either resolved or carefully managed. They were the living memory of the family's past glories and failures, and it was their duty to pass on this history to the young, instilling pride in their heritage and caution against past mistakes. A wise elder would ensure that their family's name was respected in the community, thereby opening doors for future generations. Stories about a family's reputation, good or bad, often revolved around the character and decisions of its elders. For noble families, the elder generation played a critical role in educating the next generation in the ways of courtly life, warfare, and governance. A retired knight might teach his grandsons about strategy and combat, while an elderly duchess might tutor her granddaughters in the art of diplomacy and household management. This transmission of specialized knowledge was essential for the continuity of power and influence. They ensured that heirs were properly prepared to assume their roles and responsibilities, carrying on the family's legacy of leadership. Many royal and noble lineages saw the ongoing involvement of older, sometimes widowed family members who continued to mentor and guide the younger generation, ensuring the family's political and social influence. In the event of a death or absence of the immediate parents, elders, particularly grandparents, often stepped in as primary caregivers for children. They ensured that the young were raised according to the family's values, that they received proper training, and that their future was secured. This was not a burden, but an expected duty, ensuring that the lineage did not falter due to unforeseen circumstances. Records of orphans being raised by grandparents are not uncommon, especially after events like plagues or wars. The elders' wisdom and stability provided a crucial anchor during times of uncertainty for the family. The expectation to care for the family lineage was a continuous process of strategic planning, practical management, and moral guidance. It was about ensuring that the family survived, thrived, and maintained its place in society for generations to come. The elder was the custodian of the past, the guardian of the present, and the planner for the future. Their success in this role was often measured by the continued prosperity and social standing of their descendants, making it one of the most significant and enduring responsibilities of medieval elderhood. Number 3. Religious piety and guidance. Beyond the personal quest for salvation, medieval elders were under a strong social expectation to embody and provide religious piety and guidance for their families and communities. They were seen as moral exemplars, living witnesses to the faith and conduits of spiritual wisdom. This role was central to maintaining the moral fabric of medieval society, where the Church held immense authority and religious belief permeated every aspect of life. Elders were expected to set a high standard of personal piety. This meant regular attendance at church services, participation in sacraments, and adherence to Christian moral teachings. They were often the ones leading daily prayers in the household, ensuring that family members observed fasting days and reciting religious texts. Their consistent devotion served as a powerful lesson for younger generations, reinforcing the importance of faith and the fear of God. A devout elder was respected and admired, their life a testament to virtuous living. Chroniclers sometimes recount the quiet dignity of elderly men and women whose unwavering faith was a source of strength for their entire village during times of hardship. They were also expected to provide direct spiritual guidance. This might involve teaching children the Lord's Prayer, explaining stories from the Bible, or clarifying points of church doctrine. They would impart moral lessons through parables and personal anecdotes, shaping the ethical compass of the young. This informal religious education was crucial in a society where formal schooling was limited and religious instruction often occurred within the home and local parish. An elder might explain the meaning of a particular saint's day or the significance of a pilgrimage, drawing upon their own deep knowledge of religious traditions. In communities, elders often played a role in reinforcing moral behavior. They would gently admonish those who strayed from Christian virtues, whether through gossip, dishonesty, or other sins. Their moral authority, rooted in their age and perceived closeness to God, gave their words weight. They might mediate disputes, emphasizing reconciliation and forgiveness as Christian ideals. Their presence served as a constant reminder of communal values and the importance of living a righteous life. Village records sometimes show elders being called upon to testify to a person's character or to mediate minor moral transgressions within the community, often appealing to shared religious values. For noble families, elders often took on the role of spiritual mentor for their heirs. A devout matriarch might instill a strong sense of piety in her grandsons, emphasizing their duty to God and the Church. She might arrange for a chaplain to provide regular religious instruction or encourage charitable giving. An older knight, having seen the fleeting nature of earthly glory, might emphasize the importance of spiritual salvation and the virtues of chivalry tempered by piety. This ensured that future leaders were not just militarily strong, but also morally upright, reflecting well on their lineage and securing divine favor. Biographies of medieval saints and rulers often highlight the profound religious influence exerted by their elderly parents or grandparents. Elders also served as living links to the spiritual history of the community. They remembered past miracles, recounted stories of local saints, and preserved the traditions associated with their parish church. They understood the significance of specific religious relics or pilgrimage sites in their region, sharing this knowledge with younger generations. This historical perspective deepened the spiritual connection of the community to its heritage, reinforcing their shared faith. The presence of older, revered church members in monastic orders, such as an aged prior or abbess, often meant that ancient religious practices and spiritual disciplines were meticulously maintained and passed on to new recruits, ensuring the continuity of monastic tradition. Furthermore, elders often undertook acts of significant religious devotion in their later years, which served as a public demonstration of piety. This could include fasting more strictly, undertaking penances, or making substantial donations to the church. These acts were observed by the community and reinforced the idea that, as one approached death, spiritual matters should take precedence. This final phase of life was seen as a crucial time for reconciliation with God, and elders were expected to lead by example. Their willingness to make sacrifices for their faith inspired others and solidified their role as spiritual leaders within their social sphere. The expectation of religious piety and guidance was not merely a personal choice for medieval elders, it was a fundamental social duty. They were the moral anchors of their families and communities, ensuring the continuity of faith, upholding ethical standards, and guiding the young on their spiritual journeys. Their unwavering devotion and profound wisdom provided a constant source of inspiration and stability in a world deeply rooted in Christian belief. Number 2. Maintaining social order and harmony. In medieval society, marked by strong communal ties and a lack of formalized pervasive law enforcement, elders were heavily relied upon to maintain social order and harmony within their families and communities. Their age, experience, and respected status positioned them as natural arbiters, mediators, and moral authorities. This was not a governmental decree, but a deeply ingrained social expectation fundamental to the peaceful functioning of daily life. One of the most crucial ways elders maintained order was through mediating disputes. When disagreements arose between family members, neighbors, or even between different households, people often turned to the oldest and most respected members of the community for resolution. These elders would listen patiently to both sides, drawing upon their long memory of local customs, family histories, and past conflicts to find a fair solution. Their judgment was often considered binding because it was rooted in collective wisdom and an impartial perspective rather than personal gain. For example, a boundary dispute between two farmers might be resolved by an elder recalling where the stone markers traditionally lay, or how a particular stream was used by previous generations. These informal resolutions often prevented minor disagreements from escalating into violent feuds. Local manorial court rolls sometimes mention cases being resolved by the council of the good men of the village, often referring to the elders. Elders also played a key role in enforcing social norms and correcting behavior. They were the custodians of etiquette, proper conduct, and community expectations. If a young person was disrespectful, gossiped excessively, or failed to uphold their responsibilities, an elder might offer a gentle but firm rebuke. Their disapproval carried significant weight, often more so than formal punishment, as it risked social ostracization. This informal policing of behavior helped maintain civility and cohesion within the community. The fear of disappointing or disrespecting an elder was a powerful incentive for conformity. This applied to everything from table manners to adherence to religious practices. Within households, the elder patriarch or matriarch held ultimate authority, providing structure and discipline. They ensured that everyone, from children to servants, understood their roles and responsibilities. They would manage resources, allocate tasks, and oversee daily routines, thereby preventing chaos and ensuring productivity. Their presence alone often commanded respect and ensured obedience, creating a stable domestic environment. In large, noble households, the older, trusted household staff or widowed family members often oversaw the complex daily operations, ensuring everything ran smoothly according to established customs and preventing internal conflicts among the numerous servants. Beyond mediation and enforcement, elders were crucial in fostering a sense of communal identity and shared values. They would lead or participate prominently in village gatherings, feasts, and religious ceremonies. Their presence reinforced the continuity of traditions and the importance of collective life. They would tell stories that celebrated communal heroes, explained local customs, and reminded everyone of their shared history and purpose. This storytelling fostered a sense of belonging and solidarity, which was essential for overcoming challenges and maintaining peace. The act of gathering, guided by the elders, strengthened the bonds that held the community together. When external threats emerged, whether from rival villages, bandits, or natural disasters, elders often provided calm leadership and strategic advice. Their experience navigating past crises gave them invaluable insight into potential solutions. They could counsel on defense, resource allocation, or community resilience, drawing upon lessons learned over decades. Their steady presence could prevent panic and guide the community towards effective responses. Chronicles occasionally mention elderly leaders inspiring their communities to rebuild after a fire or organize defenses against a raiding party. The expectation that elders would maintain social order and harmony was thus multifaceted. It encompassed their roles as mediators, moral arbiters, household managers, and cultural custodians. Their authority was rooted in their age and experience, and their contributions were vital for the peaceful and productive functioning of medieval society. They were the silent architects of cohesion, ensuring that the intricate web of relationships remained strong and orderly, making them indispensable pillars of their communities. Number 1. Passing down wisdom and knowledge. The most fundamental and pervasive social expectation placed upon medieval elders was their role as the primary appositories and transmitters of wisdom and knowledge. In an era before widespread literacy, mass communication, or formal institutions of education beyond the church and specialized guilds, the collective memory and learned experience of older generations were absolutely vital. Elders were the living libraries of their communities, holding the keys to survival, tradition, and progress. This wisdom encompassed an enormous range of practical knowledge. For rural communities, elders held vital information about agriculture. They knew the nuances of different soils, the patterns of local weather over decades, the optimal times for planting and harvesting various crops, and the signs that indicated impending changes in seasons. They understood animal husbandry, knowing how to care for livestock, breed them effectively, and recognize illnesses. They also knew about foraging, identifying edible plants, medicinal herbs, and dangerous fungi in the wild. This knowledge was often highly localized and accumulated through a lifetime of observation and trial and error, making it irreplaceable. A young farmer would depend heavily on the detailed, generational knowledge passed down from their elder parents or grandparents to ensure a successful harvest and avoid famine. Beyond agriculture, elders possessed a wealth of practical skills and trades, A master craftsman, even when physically unable to perform the most strenuous tasks, retained the most refined techniques and specialized knowledge of their craft. An elderly potter knew the exact clay composition for different wares, the precise temperature for firing, and the subtle defects to avoid. A retired weaver knew intricate patterns and efficient methods. These trade secrets were passed down through apprenticeship, often within families, directly from elder to junior. The value of their expertise meant that even in old age, they remained central to the economic productivity and continuity of skilled labor. Guilds often revered their oldest masters, recognizing their unparalleled wisdom. Historical and communal memory was another critical domain of elders' knowledge. They remembered past events, local triumphs and tragedies, family lineages, and the long history of their community. This historical memory was essential for understanding present circumstances, resolving disputes, and maintaining a sense of identity. They could recount tales of battles fought, famines endured, or great lords who had ruled. They served as living archives, connecting the present generation to their ancestors and the traditions that defined them. A village elder could resolve a land dispute by recalling who owned which field 3 generations ago, or explain the origins of a particular custom during a feast day. This oral history was the backbone of local identity and social cohesion. Moral and ethical wisdom also flowed from elders. They understood the consequences of human actions, the complexities of human nature, and the importance of living a virtuous life. They would share cautionary tales, offer guidance on difficult decisions, and instill values of honesty, hard work, and piety. Their life experience gave them a deep understanding of right and wrong, allowing them to provide practical and spiritual guidance. This was particularly important in a society where religious belief was paramount, and elders were often seen as closer to God due to their accumulated years and perceived wisdom. Their counsel on matters of faith and conduct was often sought and highly respected. The transmission of this wisdom and knowledge was often informal but continuous. It occurred through storytelling by the hearth, direct instruction during daily tasks, observation, and participation in community rituals. Children and young adults learned by doing, guided by the patient hand and experienced eye of their elders. This active mentorship was essential for the survival and flourishing of medieval society, ensuring that vital information was not lost between generations. The social expectation was that elders, having benefited from the wisdom of their own forebears, would in turn dedicate themselves to enlightening the youth, thereby safeguarding the future of their family and community. Their role as custodians of knowledge made them truly indispensable.